All right, good morning. I never know whether to say what day it is because I don't post these on the day that I film them, but it's Friday for me, and I'm feeling like I've earned that this week. I'm feeling like it is actually a Friday. So I'm stoked to be here with a colleague, with a friend, with someone I respect and admire. So I'm gonna shoot it right over to him. Say good morning to Josh Russell.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Logan.
Yeah, man. So you're currently doing some online training. Obviously, you've taken over the basement to be able to run through some sessions. So
Yeah,
you got a nice little setup there. That's good.
yeah, it's not bad. It gets the job done. I mean, it's no massive fitness facility, but it certainly lets me help my clients out for sure.
Yeah, right on. You've got enough space anyways to be far enough away from the camera that they can see your head and your feet at the same time. That's what I've realized is the big challenge for me is you can either see the top half or the bottom half based on getting as far away from my computer camera as possible. So I very much have to run upper body exercise paired with lower body exercise. I can't do total body, can't see it.
Of course, yes. Yeah. The other trick is to have like a pivoting type of tripod to kind of move it around a little bit.
That'll be I'll make sure that I get that before the next pandemic. How was that? Knock on wood.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm stoked that you're joining me today. I mean, you and I used to sit down at least once a week in the sense of talking about the work that we were doing together. So I feel like I've missed my weekly Josh time. So thanks for jumping on here and joining. I think we've got a really good theme for today, but it's season 2, so we're going to start with the Magic Minute, and then we'll get into the good stuff from there. So, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Excellent. All right. So, what is your favorite musical instrument?
Oh, it's the guitar. Absolutely.
Cool. What's your favorite car?
Oh, it's my car, my Volkswagen GTI.
There we go. If you had to pick the theme for your wedding versus letting your lovely wife do something beautiful, what would you make the dominant color scheme or pattern if you could just redo it all over again? What would you pick?
You know what? Some sort of forest theme, and that's kind of what we ended up going with too. I mean, I feel most relaxed in the forest, and that's the theme I'd pick.
Nice. Okay. What's the coolest place you've ever traveled to?
Oh man, Dallas.
Why? I'm curious.
Well, the cool thing was that the reason for the trip was we literally went to go see a football game. We flew all the way down to Dallas to watch an NFL football game, and that was just the coolest. I got to miss like 3 days of school for it too, so it was just a really cool experience.
Cool. All right. So I'm assuming Dallas Cowboys, yeah?
Yes, it was a Cowboys Philadelphia Eagles home opener. So it was a shootout. There was like 100 points scored between both teams. It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. All right. If you could meet any author for lunch, dinner, a weekend in the forest, whatever, who would you pick? Who would you want to meet?
Oh man, that's a great question. Probably Tolkien. I would like to talk Lord of the Rings for hours on end in this mystical forest and really get a sense of the storytelling genius that is J.R.R. Tolkien.
I like it. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, follow-up question to that. If you could insert yourself as any character into any movie, who would you choose to be?
Wow, that's these are fantastic questions. I love them. Into any movie, any character. I feel like any of the James Bond characters. Well, yeah, James Bond would be really cool. Drive the fast car, get into action, never break a sweat. That'd be pretty cool. See the world. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, last question, because I know you've taken up cooking from home and you've been posting some really nice pictures of your delicious meals. Yeah. What is like the unicorn recipe, like the thing that you want to learn how to make that would be like, it would be like your go-to if you needed to impress people when you invited them over for dinner?
The one, and this might seem so silly, but the one thing that I think is super cool, I don't even know what it's called, but it's when you cook an egg in boiling water and you like whisk it into itself and it creates this like soft boiled egg. Maybe that's what it's called.
Okay.
Have you seen this?
Well, there's a couple different options. There's like the poached egg where you like crack it into the boiling water and then
Yeah,
it cooks, but it's got like some sort of little wavy tentacle things that happen. Or
I
yeah,
think
man,
that's it.
I scramble my eggs. I don't know. I feel like I
Yeah,
kind of get what you're going for, but
yeah. It
someone's
would
gonna
just
be
be
watching
like that.
it going, it's called blah blah blah, and they're gonna be mad about it.
Yeah. Well, well, of course, and that's fine. That way, I can actually learn what the proper name for it is. But I just think it's so cool to take something that is so simple and then just take it over the top, just for the sake of complexity.
There we go. All right. If
Yeah.
anybody watching this knows what that is, throw it in the comments so that Josh and I can both learn
Yes.
the name of this fancy, simple egg. That's cool, man. You know what? I feel like that's actually pretty representative of you as a person. You're like, I mean, this is a compliment. You're a simple guy, but you take things
Yeah.
over the top. You deliver exceptional service. You are a really great teammate. There's a lot of ways where you take simple and make it really meaningful. So I think your dish of choice is fairly representative of that.
Awesome.
My
Perfect.
armchair psychology up in here. All right. Cool. Nice magic minute. All right, we're going to get into the topic of our conversation today. And again, as I'm talking to people that I know and spend time with and enjoy, there's always lots of things we could talk about. But what we decided to talk about was kind of a little bit of a storyline around optimizing your life. So we're going to make that the theme, and sort of where it kicked off was I said at the beginning before we started the video, I said, hey Josh, how you doing? He's like, you know what, actually pretty good. I'm kind of proud of like how I'm using my time, how I'm spending my time, which can be challenging in the complete absence of any structure. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, but first we got to back up. You got to share a little bit about kind of where you started from. I love your story of like when you first interviewed to be a trainer. So take us back a little bit, explain a little bit about, about your life, who you were before you stepped into the career, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I guess the most interesting place to start was kind of like through sports. Like I played childhood sports, and I started with soccer and baseball because those are the easy things for a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old to do. And then as I got more interested in sports, I added more technically challenging sports. I played lacrosse and football and rugby. And after playing all those sports, lacrosse was always my favorite because it was a combination of conditioning, skill, teamwork, and it was always high scoring games. So it really kept me in the game and excited to play. Going through high school, I stopped playing sports. Just for whatever, I felt like I outgrew them. And while I was athletic, I was eating like an athlete. And then when I was in high school, I wasn't working like an athlete, but still eating like an athlete because that's all I knew. So I ended up gaining a ton of weight, and with nowhere really to burn the energy. One day while I was working at the grocery store, working overnight shifts, I told myself, I had a moment in the mirror. I was like, this is enough. Enough is enough. I got to take care of my health. So I started off by cutting out all the foods that I knew were bad for me. Like when you look at a food, you go, that's good for me, that's bad, or that's bad for me, or I don't know if this is good for me, and you kind of make your decision based off of that information. So I just said, enough is enough. Cold turkey, anything that I look at is bad, I'm not eating that. No problem. Lost weight really simply, but still had never worked out in a gym. All that time in athletics, I never stepped foot in a gym once. It was always cardio or field-based training or skill-based training in practices. And sure enough, the first time that I went to the gym, or the first 2 weeks, it was actually that quick. In 2 weeks, I had my first injury doing an overhead shoulder press. Something clicked, cracked, and crunched. I was like, ooh, that didn't feel good. I went to go put the weights back on the weight rack, and I crushed my hand underneath the weight rack and pinched it and started bleeding. I was like, okay, I guess I will not do this gym thing. I guess I'm destined to be inactive forever. So life goes on, continued to do my job. And in the summer of 2013, one of my friends was going to school to become a personal trainer, and he needed a guinea pig. I was like, oh, this is an opportunity. Please take me to the gym and show me how to exercise safely. And going through the first workout, it was a lot of fun, enjoyable. Obviously, we worked upper body, no legs. 2 guys going to the gym, we're not working legs. And my friend, he said, all right, we're going to finish off with push-ups. I was like, awesome. Push-ups all day, played football, no problem. I go into my plank, I drop to the ground, and I immediately fall on my face because my arms were so exhausted that I couldn't do the exercise. And I got up laughing. I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. Like, how can I not do a push-up? And there kind of began that pursuit of doing simple things properly and getting stronger and you know, the discipline of going to the gym on a regular basis. Funny enough, it was the same about 2-week period where I met my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. And this was almost 7 years ago now. And that was all the motivation I needed. Anytime I would say, hey, Ash, you want to hang out? She's like, oh yeah, I just got to go to the gym first. I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. Let me join you. Let's go to the gym together. And that enjoyment of exercise and the way that my life just kind of 180 degree turned. It was full of a lot more energy and fulfillment and a brand new relationship that I really enjoyed, that I felt like I wanted to give that, like everybody should have, like, get a chance to feel that. So it was that summer that I decided to enroll in a personal training program. I had to work the overnight shift to catch bonuses just to pay for it, but I did. And immediately, as soon as I graduated, tried to get a job. How are we doing so far?
Love it. I'm
Okay.
spellbound. Keep going.
All right, perfect. So when I got my certification, I applied at a couple different places. One place didn't get back to me until 3 weeks later when I had already had a job. Another gym interviewed me right on the spot. I was interviewed by somebody who didn't know very much about exercise, and I was like, ooh, I feel like I shouldn't be teaching my prospective boss new things because I want to learn from these people. And then at Steve Nash, where I spent most of my personal training career, I actually had to fight for my job, which was actually really exciting. I actually had, you know, the manager at the time looked at me. My hair was as long as it is now. I was wearing a Metallica shirt, some ripped up jeans. I was holding a skateboard. And I said, hey, I want a job. And she's like, yeah, here's a 7-day pass. Come work out here. I'm not really hiring, but come work out here. I was like, okay, cool, no problem. So the same day, I came back later with my girlfriend at the time, Ashley, and one of my brothers, and I took over the most open space in front of everyone, and I put on a show. I literally took over the space. I put on my own music. I was speaking loudly, speaking clearly, working out hard, kind of barking at them here and there too, so that I could really get people's attention. And by the end of the workout, the fitness manager told me that I could have an interview if I wanted it. So that was a really cool thing to kind of like earn the interview. 5 interviews later, cutting my hair shorter than it has been since elementary school and taking my eyebrow piercing out, I finally got the job and started my personal training career. And early on, it was super challenging. It was something that I had never done before. It was a complete format that was, you know, I was so used at the grocery store. Here's the daily things that you do, and you just go do them, and when they're done, they're done. But as a personal trainer, the job's never really done. There's always somebody else to help. There's always some other fitness tip that you can provide to somebody, and there's always another workout. There's always another a day where people are exercising. So that was like pretty overwhelming to begin with. But as soon as I got the first couple of programs under my belt and the first couple of workouts, I started to feel a lot more comfortable. And that was a result of being pushed by so many other people to kind of stay in the saddle and keep on talking to people and keep on working, keep just going and going and going. And I realized, oh, okay, this is something that, like I said, is never stopping. Like there's no downtime as a personal trainer because of that responsibility we have to help people. And that was something that, even though felt like a lot to deal with early on, it later became the fuel for continuing to work harder and continuing to develop more skills and get more certifications and add more people to help, adding more people to help. So over the first,
let me jump in there for a second, because I think that's something that we really want to talk about, especially as our theme is optimizing. We've sort of got this battle in language around work-life balance, which I'll be honest, is not my thing. I've never asked for that. I've never needed that. I've never felt like that was a requirement of how I wanted to live my life. Whether that's being an athlete and sort of your whole entire waking world is consumed with like, how do I stay ahead of my competition and how do I get ready to play and win? I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. My dad's got a pretty epic work ethic too, so I think it might be a little bit genetic. But there's definitely a very large percentage of the population that subscribes to the belief of work-life balance. And I'm not going to talk you out of that. It's recognizing that that's a camp of people.
Right.
And I just recognized that I wasn't part of that for a long time. It took a while for me to meet someone who was able to put language to what I subscribe to, which is work-life blend. And what that means to me is I love what I do. I am lucky that I've been in a job and a career in an industry my whole working life that I love. And so I don't need the same sense of like, oh, I got to punch in, I got to do my job, I got to make, my paycheck, and then I'm going to punch out, and then I get to go live my life the way I want to.
Right.
I love showing up for work and doing my job, but we also know that the industry has a high rate of burnout. We see it all the time. There's a ton of turnover. There's a lot of come and go. And sometimes people leave to go rise in the industry. They go somewhere else, they grow, they develop, and that's awesome. But also a lot of people leave because they can't figure out how to find the balance or the blend that they need to keep doing something they love, but also, be able to sustain themselves. And so sometimes people step down or they leave the industry and they go do something else, right? So whatever. The reality is that happens almost everywhere, but I see it a lot in the work that we do. So let's talk about that a little bit, because there's a big difference between working hard,
right,
and doing the right work, right? You can work hard, you can be busy, and you can drain your batteries, and you can get to the end of a day or a week or a month and feel really tired. But there's a difference between being busy and being productive. There's a difference between work-life balance, where I have to leave my job and I have to go away and recharge and refuel, versus there's specific work that I know needs to be done. It's impactful. It's a win-win. It helps my client. It helps me. It helps my team. I get some reward out of it. And then at the same time, as I go look at how do I recharge my batteries and how do I recover, it's an active process, not a passive one. So this idea of like go home, get into a bubble bath, listen to, I don't know, Sinead O'Connor or something, like that doesn't refuel me. So if I go do that, if I walk away and I'm all passive on the other side, I don't recharge. I don't get what I need to show up the next day or the next week and do my job well again. So I think that's sort of where we're headed with this idea of like, how do I optimize? Let's talk a little bit about when you first started. What was some of the work that you did that was busy, but that you had to learn over time wasn't necessarily productive? What does that look like?
Oh, that's a really good question. I kind of had the luxury early on where I could afford to be busy, right? Like I did have so much time. I didn't have much responsibility, so I could afford to be busy. So I think that early on, my problem was that I looked at all work as being busy. I didn't know how to optimize my time. That's where I really learned all of it. So, I mean, aside from the operational tasks like prospecting and writing programs and taking people through programs, that was all work that I did always, because that's the work that you have to do to get busy. But when there was a dramatic shift from going home and being like, man, that was such a hard work day. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do that again. To, oh my God, that was a great work day. I can't wait to do that again. And it sounds so silly and so cliche, but it was one book that did that for me. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And the way it ended up in my hands was very strange. I heard about it from a friend. He's like, oh man, I used this Audible download thing and I got this book and it's helped me build this passion project. And this project is super, super viable right now. It's doing really well. Then I listened to podcasts and heard it talked about it on podcasts, but the day I actually bought it was when I saw it on a coworker's desk. I was like, oh, okay, this is obviously trying to tell me something. This is a message. So I went and bought that book, and it totally changed the way that I looked at work. Before working at the grocery store, it was all about put the time in, be busy. Busy is good. Busy is what people see, and that's how you know you're working hard. To, okay, pick a project that you love, that you can give your heart to, that will benefit your life beyond work. So I think that that's when the optimization started. And instead of going home and playing video games for 7 hours and going to bed at 3 a.m., waking up at 7 a.m. to go and train my clients or go and try and prospect on the floor, I went home and was like, okay, so what can I do to support my efforts in prospecting? What can I do to support better client relationships? What can I do to support getting my workouts in and feeling more energetic throughout my day so that I can be more present for my clients? So all of the work was still the same work, but I wasn't hustling for it. It became more of something that I was excited to do and that I look forward to. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's a big distinction in work-life balance, work-life blend is literally
Okay.
your perspective. So that's a big one. And then let's get into the bits and pieces, because you and I have talked about books. We're both pretty big fans of books. So there's a couple that I'm thinking about. You talked a little bit about a book that was talking about sleep, and then
Yeah.
we were talking about like the 5 a.m. club. So
Yeah.
so talk a little bit more about and the reality is you get this wave of motivation to make changes. You make some changes. Some of them stick, some of them don't. Right?
Yeah.
You get on this high and then you kind of lose a little bit and then you got to go back up again. So like optimization is not A to B. There's
Right.
going to definitely be, like any road to success, there's going to be successes and failures. You learn from your failures. You sometimes take your successes for granted. So there's a process. But let's talk a little bit about some of the actual steps that you took, or some of the routine changes, or some of the things that you started doing differently, and sort of let's lead up towards sort of where you were at least pre-COVID. Let's get that
Okay.
far. What did you do to change your day to day?
The first thing was sleep. I mean, I think that's like the most obvious one that you can adjust. Because there was a lot that I just didn't know about sleep. Like I was like, all right, I go to bed when I'm tired and I wake up and hopefully I feel refreshed. that was the extent of my knowledge of sleep. And then I bought a book that's literally is 21 chapters, 21 different strategies for getting a better night's sleep. And, one of the first chapters is, no screens before bed. Instead, read a book. Science, science, science. Here's why. So I was like, okay, great. I've got this 21 chapter book. I'll read a chapter before I go to bed. And not only that, not only do I accomplish that goal of reading before bed instead of staring at a screen, burning my eyes out, I will consistently add each day a new strategy. So the things that I think that are most important, of course, are the no screens before bed. To read some sort of fiction, like read some sort of anything, but fiction tends to work better. Having a caffeine curfew. As trainers, we literally probably have more caffeine in our system than water. So that was really a lot for me, and that was a big adjustment, but it did pay dividends eventually. Picking a bedtime, picking a wake time, and then routine. Just stick to that routine. And if you fall off the routine, that's fine, as long as you're still using some of those other tools to not completely destroy your sleep. You'll wake up more refreshed than otherwise. So that was probably the first big adjustment that I made, and immediately waking up and feeling refreshed is just the best way to start your day. Like, you already start out at like an 8 out of 10, and then depending on what your morning routine is, you can boost that to a 9 or a 10, or maybe even if it's not the greatest morning, you drop to a 7, and that's still a great way to start your day, rather than dragging yourself out of bed at a 2 out of 10 and trying to wake up in the shower with a cup of coffee. Yeah, so that was sleep. Obviously, is a big thing. Yeah. Do we want to talk about anything else like that?
I think that's a really good one. I think that's definitely a point. There's so many angles that we could come at for sleep, from the perspective of recovery, parasympathetic activation, HRV, daily readiness, immunity. Like, you sleep, that's when you grow and repair muscle tissue. You sleep, that's when you restore your hormone profile to balance. Like, there's so many reasons why sleeping enough and with decent quality makes such a huge difference. I literally had an online session with my client this morning, and I was like, "Hey, is that a new shirt?" And she was like, "No, it's an old shirt, but I usually don't wear it because I feel like I'm too puffy or bloated to wear it. But I've been losing some weight, and I felt like, you know what, I can wear this shirt today. Like, I'm flatter on the front and I'm narrower on the side."
Nice.
And so we were talking about that a little bit. And the main things that have changed in her life is, one, she's working from home more often. Duh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
But by saving commuter time, and one of the realities is, at least in her industry, like, she used to go to the office and work, and then meet with clients and entertain them after work.
Right.
So she's
That's
not
all
doing
work.
those things. She's not fighting traffic. She's not in the rush hour. She's not, trying to get into the downtown district for, 9 a.m. on Monday morning. And then she's also not going out after and having a couple drinks at happy hour and talking to clients. So it's not really a calorie thing. There's literally
Yeah.
way less stress in her life. And instead of driving and meeting people for drinks after work, she's able to get even a half hour walk in, or sometimes we do a workout or whatever. And she was losing weight, but we haven't really done a lot to talk about nutrition. We haven't really, we're not doing like crazy intense, high intensity interval training. We're doing simple stuff. We're keeping her moving. We're, doing a lot of body weight stuff. I'm trying to get her to stretch a little bit more often, but at the end of the day, she's sleeping more and she's sleeping better.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to wake up at 6. She can wake up at 7:30, and she's losing weight. So, for the fact that a lot of our clients are asking for that type of end game, that's what their goal is.
Yeah.
It's a little crazy for us to not talk about things like sleep quantity and quality or sleep strategies.
Yes.
Because when you talk about making a change, behavior change, it's hard. It takes energy. It takes a lot of mental energy to create a habit and think through all of the details that it takes to make that habit a reality. And so if we're tired, we're not rested, and we're not recovered, what are the odds that the brain is going to prioritize this new scary thing as being a place that energy is going to get funneled? So yeah, I think sleep is a really good one.
Good.
Let's talk then. Let's shift from that. I mean, you slept better. You did multiple things as a trainer. You worked as a full-time trainer. You got into club management. You ended up running your own club for a while. You went back into training. You got into education. So ideally, the concept of optimizing your life and figuring out the right work to do is that it sort of created a pathway for you for leadership growth and development, which is awesome, right? Finding the right work to do and sort of keeping that hunger to like always learn more and always be better is essentially one of the things that allows you to grow in your career. And then all of a sudden the doors close and we get slammed with the current situation. And again, there's kind of two camps. Like you sort of see people that are going like, this is a traumatic experience. It's okay to rest, recover. You don't have to be side hustling or taking on a passion project. You can just be in this time. And for some people, that's so much truth.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the equation, you've got people that are using this time to learn something new, side hustle, passion project, whatever. So I want to just preface this by saying, I'm not saying one is better than the other.
Of
I'm not
course.
saying to do one and the other is a waste of time. I'm not saying that. But if you find yourself with the time, space, energy, curiosity to optimize and move forward and take advantage of this time, again, I think there's things you can do that optimize that experience versus the environmental triggers or the routine that you don't have, how you realize that that's not necessarily supporting you. So I'm going to kick it back to you. You said you're kind of proud of how you're spending your time these days. So just kind of walk us through what it looks like. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I think that my first objective, and I guess I'll go back to like when everything initially kind of crashed and shut. There was probably about a week and a half where I sat on my ass and did nothing because I was like, all right, cool, rest. Actually, I was supposed to be on a honeymoon, and that didn't end up happening. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to take full advantage of this time. I got to a point where I was just like, okay, I felt this itch. I'm like, okay, I got to do something. Like I can't go work. That's how I spent most of my time. So my first objective was structure, right? Right now, there's no structure. How can I create structure? And in personal training, at least, and in many different professions, you work off of a calendar. So I just brought up my Google Calendar and I started filling my days with things. And early on, I was like, okay, well, the most intuitive thing to do to make sure that, one, I can still make some income so I don't have to worry about money, was to continue to support my clients through this challenging time. So initially I did, I have been doing, and I'm still doing virtual personal training sessions from my parents' glorious basements. And that gave me a good amount of structure and a lot of good, I guess you could say, like spinning the mental tires so that I could get some more mobility in my brain going. And then that was good. And that was like 2 hours, 3 hours a day, an hour a day. I'm like, okay, good. Like now what? And just this past week or so, I've taken on a new project that's going to take a lot more time. That's going to be a lot more open-ended. I don't want to talk about it too much yet, because I do want to release it on in the right way. But it is going to be a center for continuing to support those who want to improve their health and their wellness, as well as their education. And the beauty of this thing is that there's literally unlimited amount of time that I could put into it. So being somebody who loves to work a lot, as you know, I mean, at Steve Nash, I was trainer and educator at the same time. So I was always being pulled in a bunch of different directions. Now I have the outlets through which to do that. So going back to kind of like that, changing the sleep habit and getting into a good routine. Before, as just a trainer, I would sleep until it was time to work. And that was fine. I felt good and refreshed for work. But now I don't really have specific work to go to until I schedule it into my calendar. I also know that if I wake up, I procrastinate the first 2 hours. So when I wake up, I set my wake time at a time that's early enough so that my first 2 hours of procrastination time are reading, are surfing the internet, are tidying up the kit, whatever it may be. Like, I'm just trying to spend a little time to build some momentum before I get into my work. And if I've had a couple of training sessions before I get into my passion project, I'm already feeling ramped up and energetic, and I can make the most use of my time. So I think on a daily basis, I think it's really important to schedule time that you enjoy and get into the habit and routine of giving yourself something that you really enjoy on a daily basis, whether that's work, whether it's going for a walk, working out, calling friends. Like, I'm trying to think of the COVID variations of these examples. Call a friend, watch some whatever it is that you got to do to kind of give yourself some energy for being productive. That's kind of been my secret to success and productivity over these last few weeks.
Awesome. I like it. Yeah. And, I think we're hearing sort of the same things that cross over to, real life in the world versus what's happening now. And the idea is, if you were someone that ran on a schedule before, it's probably going to be really beneficial for you to run on a schedule now. And if you didn't run on a schedule before, you've got this wide open opportunity to maybe try something different and see if it works for you. But, I think there's some basic standards that we could agree on from like the science of the human body. Pretty reasonable to assume that every human being on the planet would benefit from better sleep and enough of it. Yeah. Right. And then I was talking to another client about like I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I was talking to another client about when you have a scheduled life, you get up, you eat breakfast, you go to work, there's a lunch break, you eat lunch, you go back to work, you go home, you eat dinner. Yeah. And for example, trying to stick to a schedule around when you're eating would potentially be really helpful right now. Yeah. When we're bored and our environmental trigger is, I don't know what to do. And then the action that we link to that environmental trigger is, I'm going to go open the fridge and see what's in there. That's not necessarily a pairing that's going to help us stay fit and healthy and whatever. So finding a way to create some scheduling can be really effective. So I'm gonna reference and throw back to something that Kat Bearfield said when we were chatting a little bit about behavior change. She said there's 3 conditions that we need to make a new habit. One is, it's got to be something you want to do. 2 is, there's got to be some kind of environmental trigger or some kind of scheduling around making it happen. And then 3, you got to celebrate success. So when you can hear, as you're talking, you're talking about a passion project. You're saying how much I love working. This is something that has unlimited potential. You can hear how much that's something that you want to do. You've now got a schedule that allows you to sort of warm up and prime up for your day, do some work, get you sort of into the mindset of the work that you like to do. And then from there, you take that energy and roll it into this project. So, it sort of sounds like you've distilled a lot of lessons from, a couple really, really cool resources. Right. You found something that works for you, regardless of whether it's get up, get out the door, go to work in a more structured environment, or finding a way to create that for yourself because you've realized that lends to success. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got one more question. You can decide how honest you want to be with the answer, but
okay.
You managed to go through with your wedding as planned just before the shutdown of everything. And then, like you said, you guys were supposed to be away for a honeymoon and those plans changed. So what I'm curious about is what's your opinion, or what advice do you have around maintaining the health of our relationships during quarantine or isolation, or, oh my God, I've never spent so many hours in a row with you.
Yeah.
Because I think you're always someone that I've thought is fairly reflective of and active in the status of your relationship. You turn around and look at it and go,
Yeah.
what can I do to make it better? So if you want to,
Absolutely.
and share some stuff about how you're managing being a newly married man, and
Yeah.
and managing the quality of your relationship while we're in this sort of interesting scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that comes to mind is like, you've got to take care of yourself first. Like, it sounds kind of selfish, but for example, if I was actually, no, I'll give you a perfect example. During those first 10 days and towards the end of it, where I was feeling lazy and feeling run down and feeling like, man, what the heck am I even going to do with my time? It reflected towards the person I was spending the most time with. And during those times, it was tense. It wasn't as productive or as desirable as we normally want it. But as soon as I got this like crazy idea, and as soon as I started with these virtual training sessions, I was feeling better. So the relationship was doing better. Not to say that my mood determines the health of the relationship, but when Ashley can interact with somebody who's feeling inspired and feeling productive and feeling accomplished, it's obviously a lot easier to interact with somebody like that. Not to mention, there's always something to talk about because there's constantly new ideas being developed. I'm like, all right, here's what I did today. Here's how my session was today. What did you get up to today? And they're like, wow, I don't know, but tomorrow I'm gonna get something done. And it just kind of continues to feed the health of the relationship. And I don't know. It kind of almost helps you forget that we're living in such challenging times. So I think like number one is definitely, turn it back on yourself and figure out, okay, like, am I bringing a good version of myself to the relationship? And then on the other hand, like, plan your day. So at the end of my work day, Ashley has a plan of what we're going to do to finish the evening so that we can both share quality time together. Whether that's going for a drive. I mean, the sunsets have been beautiful these last few weeks. Whether it's sitting down and working through a puzzle, or for the millionth time, go over baby names. Like, there's lots of stuff that we're doing. Watching The Office, watching Lord of the Rings. Sometimes I'll read to her. Like, there's always a plan for the evening, and then stick to the plan, because one, that gives us the structure that I look for, and the structure that I enjoy. And it also gives Ashley something to look forward to at the end of her work day and the end of my work day, so that we can go to bed feeling refreshed, feeling happy with each other, and excited to do it all over the next day.
I like it, man.
That's good.
That's great. That's awesome. Hopefully there's been a few ideas in here that some of you might feel would be important to implement, or at least try out. I think what I would provide as context around all of this is, we're talking about a change that has happened over, like, realistically 7 years. If you got your job in 2013 and it's now 2020, there's definitely time to try things and succeed and fail and try again, and there's going to be your own personal version of optimizing your life. So it's not like you have to have it all figured out by the time the world opens up again and we get back to work. But the idea is, I think, at least acknowledging how much power and impact you have over your own life, right? So if you are currently stuck in the narrative of, I am a victim of these circumstances, or I am frustrated by the structure that is dictated to me based on my job, my relationship, my finances, my life, my world, whatever, what you potentially have the opportunity to do is look at that narrative and try letting it go and seeing what's available if you take ownership of and take responsibility for what you choose to allow into your life, or what you choose to spend your time, effort, and energy on, right? So I think maybe one of the interesting things about this scenario is a lot of what our lives were about changed. A lot of what we were doing is, at least on temporary pause. So what have you noticed feels good to have gotten rid of? What do you find that you're missing? And really take a look at, if I was going to think forward to when things open up again, and I don't know exactly what the timeline is, But if I was going to create right now some intentionality around what I want that to look like, what would I keep? What would I throw away? What would I do differently? Where do I need to go learn so that I can have some additional, tools or strategies to make some changes on the other side? Who can I ask questions to get some additional perspective? Well, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? So if nothing else, the fact that we have a little bit of extra time on our hands is maybe an opportunity to look at that. I did a year of coaching, and I think one of the absolute biggest takeaways that I got out of the whole experience is, if you don't plan your life, at least to a certain extent, if you don't have ideas, goals, intentions, if you don't look at creating some kind of destination or goal for yourself, then life happens to you.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
what you absolutely have when you wake up every day is the opportunity to do something that you want to do, that moves you in the direction of where you want to go. And yet probably a lot of times we let an entire day go by without moving us in the direction that we want to go. So every step counts. Every little thing that we do in the right direction will eventually get us there. But if we don't know where we're going and we don't know what we want,
Yeah.
we're probably not making any headway in one single direction. So, you can't take Josh's life and his goals and decide, well, I'm going to work towards that. You have to find your own way. You have to find your own passion project or your own direction. But maybe this is a time to be thinking about those kinds of things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. That totally gets to kind of the end of what I wanted to talk to. So, thank you so much for that. Considering the audience that we have, potentially, prospective students, current students,
Yep.
graduates, a whole bunch of people that you've contributed a lot to and made a big impact on. Is there anything else that you want to say or throw out there to the crowd?
Yeah, I think that's a good universal goal, is to try and find failure in your attempts. I put up an Instagram post a couple intakes ago, and it was the concept of, I guess, personal development from Ray Dalio's principles. And the idea is that you set goals and you either accomplish them or you don't, but either way, if you accomplish them or you don't, you end up kind of falling down and then picking yourself back up and setting an even more intense goal, and you kind of continue to spiral up into this higher level of yourself. And something that I didn't talk about in our time today was how many of those tactics I read about in the sleep journal or in the 5 a.m. club or the 4-hour work week that I used and just didn't like and didn't add into the routine. So you almost have to cast a broad enough net to find the tactics and to find the things that you want to use that will actually work for you. And they may be useful early on, midway through, later in life, but at least having read through or learned the tactics, you'll be able to reference them and use them when you feel that they're most appropriate.
Sure. And as a trainer, you might read a tactic that doesn't work for you, but is an absolute gold star for a client. So
Absolutely.
Trying something and realizing that it's not a good fit for you, you still potentially learn a lesson that allows you to help somebody else, in the future. There's definitely something about being a trainer, which is being willing to explore lots of different things. And I think we all have a natural style of training that we like. We all have a particular way of organizing our nutrition that works for us. But, I would call it an immature trainer mistake to try to turn your client into like a clone of yourself. What we want to do instead is be able to explore the options and work with the client to find something that works for them. So trying something and ultimately scratching it off the list for yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Might still be really valuable learning that you can pass on to somebody else. So
yeah. One of my favorite mastery quotes is know the way broadly and you will see it in all things. So you can just see, like, from learning how to use a kettlebell, you'll learn more about just strength principles in general. I would attribute that to movement, to leadership development, career development, everything.
I like it. Awesome. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining me, carving some time out in your day. I know you've got an awesome project on the go, and I've seen a little teaser. I'm excited to see what it is, but I'll wait with everybody else to reveal. But
Awesome.
appreciate you, spending some time and throwing some awesome information out there. I know, like me, one of the things that, we miss is the ability to offer insight and experience and make an impact in other people's lives the way we get to it when we're trainers and educators and team
Yeah.
members. Hopefully this scratches that itch a little bit for today.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, keep doing what you're doing, keep learning, keep growing. I get inspired when you post pictures of the food you're cooking, picking up, all these odd little skills, but just sort of that curiosity and that broad approach, I think has a lot of appeal to it. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you. I miss our, more dedicated working time, but
Yeah.
we're accomplishing good things in the meantime. And hopefully, sooner rather than later, when it's safe and when it's right, we'll all be able to get back to work and take what we've learned in this time and use it to move forward and create some successes on the other side.
Absolutely. That's the dream.
There you go. Well, say hello to your beautiful wife for me. She was a regular participant in my classes and everything. So give her
She
a wave.
misses it so much. She misses it so much.
There we go.
But absolutely.
All right. Thanks so much, man. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll get this up soon so that people can benefit from all you've had to share.
Cool.
And yeah, appreciate it. That's
great.
another season 2 wrapped up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll talk to you later.